Most of the people that I know personally that are killing it at using this technology are 50 plus. And I really thought, the young kids, the 35 and under, are really going to grab this thing and take off. That has not been my experience at all. Teachers were telling them, you better not use this or we're going to fail you. I think a lot of fear was instilled in them, so they really held off on using it. And as I started getting interviews, which were few and far between, I quickly realized that I had, in that time, missed the entire digital age of advertising. So even though I exited at the top of my game in a very high position, all of that expertise was completely irrelevant because time and technology had moved on. I realized that at the age I was at, I could not afford to miss out on another huge technological wave of not learning the industry and the business and the tools. That was the fire that was lit underneath me to grab a hold of this technology and learn everything I possibly could about it because I've been irrelevant before and I couldn't afford to let that happen again.
SourceKamp helps organizations automate time-consuming tasks, automate workflows, enhance productivity. Its mission is to bridge the gap between complex AI technologies and practical implementation, ensuring businesses not only adopt AI, but also maximize its potential.
I like getting on podcasts like this where I can talk about the tools, the tricks, the shortcuts, what's coming, what to focus on, what not to focus on. That was what was appealing. Connectors are going to be the thing that changes another huge wave of society as we know it. So ChatGPT, for example, has partnered with Walmart and HubSpot and some other platforms through their connectors. The other reason I'm so glad I picked Notion because now here's a little secret sauce for you.
All right, everybody, welcome to the AI Space podcast. AI isn't just the future. It's a force rewriting the rules of business, wealth creation, and society. If you're a founder, innovator, or technologist, this is the AI show for you. The question you have to ask yourself is, will I blaze a path, follow the crowd, or be left in the dust? Wow, this is season 2, 4th episode, and we're thrilled to have Kellye Kamp, founder of SourceKamp Labs. SourceKamp helps organizations automate time-consuming tasks, automate workflows, enhance productivity. Its mission is to bridge the gap between complex AI technologies and practical implementation, ensuring businesses not only adopt AI, but also maximize its potential. Kellye Kamp is a serial entrepreneur with 10 plus startups. Ms. Kamp has built a career on identifying emerging trends and turning them into actionable business strategies. I'm Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors, your trusted advisor for AI founders and businesses focused on go-to-market strategy and execution. Kellye, on the AI Space podcast, we jump right in to highlight game-changing insights that help founders drive innovation and scale business initiatives. First of all, welcome. What do you see as the key trends in AI for 2026?
Wow, so many trends. First of all, I think the trend is we have to get on board with learning generative AI. I think it's no longer a choice, and it's not something we can wait until it settles down to start learning. So I think the time is right now.
And then what do you see beyond that in the medium to long term?
Beyond that, I really keep a close ear on the job market situation because it's pretty radical right now and it's not like anything we've ever seen before. So I'm hearing a lot of thought leaders saying the normal 9 to 5, although it will never go away, it's definitely diminishing. And individuals are now facing the opportunity or the crisis, whichever way you see it, of maybe being self-employed and starting their own gig economy or starting their own business, whatever that looks like. And being a serial entrepreneur for 25 years, I am pretty comfortable with that idea, but I also know that entrepreneurialism is not for everyone. So it's really going to shake up a lot of industries, a lot of jobs, a lot of lives. And I think learning this technology is really crucial to being able to move ahead, to stay in the marketplace and understand what's coming and how to navigate it. There are going to be lots of jobs created with this technology. All we hear about are the jobs that will be lost. But like any new technology, there will be thousands, if not millions, of new jobs created that we can't possibly imagine yet. But I think that the sooner you can get into this game and start paying attention to what's going on and understanding how the technology works, I think people are going to be much better off.
Yeah, and so from a 2025 perspective, right? Maybe what is the one takeaway that you have is like, maybe I didn't think about that or it kind of shifted your mindset and how you approach 2026?
Well, it doesn't start with the technology, really. I mean, I work with a lot of businesses and we still have to start with figuring out what problem we're trying to solve in our businesses. Whether we have AI or not, we still have to start with that particular element. And once we pinpoint what the challenge is, what we're trying to solve for, then we can start to explore how the technology can help get us there a little faster, a little more economically, expediently, things like that. But we can't skip over the basics of Business 101.
I think that's great because now I've had 30 episodes, right? I've had founders, executives, technologists, scientists, people from different areas, VCs, community builders. And that's a common theme across everything is like, it's easy to build a product. The question is, have you identified what problem you're solving in a meaningful way? And can you tell that story, right? So I appreciate that. So what do you see as the top AI strategies to grow and scale a business?
I think the strategy, again, we have to go back to Business 101 and say, do you have the right people in place? Because AI is not a magic button, and it is not going to take the place of every human that you think you need to hire or want to hire or have hired. It's like saying, I'm going to buy a calculator and have it run the accounting department. Calculators are just a tool. They still need a human actually putting in the input and double checking the numbers and making sure that things are correct. It is a very helpful tool to have for your accounting department, but it's not going to take the place of the accountants.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think we can take a step back. Kellye, first of all, welcome once again. We can breathe now for a little bit. So tell us a little bit more about your background. What led you into this foray into AI?
I think it's a pretty interesting and relevant story. I have had a number of careers or a number of jobs and careers and businesses over my adult lifetime. And I started out in advertising. I did that for 12 years. I worked my way up from medium to large agencies. I exited as a senior creative director. I moved to another market, different state where there just were not any advertising agencies. So I had to pivot. And I found myself in construction of all things, which was actually very similar to being a creative director. I just didn't realize it at the time. But I did construction for 23 years and decided that I was not learning as much as I wanted to. I was just ready for change, ready to do something different. And I thought, I really did love advertising. I think I'll get back into that. And as I started getting interviews, which were few and far between, I quickly realized that I had in that time missed the entire digital age of advertising. So even though I exited at the top of my game in a very high position, all of that expertise was completely irrelevant because time and technology had moved on. And about that time is when ChatGPT dropped, 3 years as of yesterday, as a matter of fact. I realized that at the age I was at, I could not afford to miss out on another huge technological wave of not learning the industry and the business and the tools. That was the fire that was lit underneath me to grab a hold of this technology and learn everything I possibly could about it because I've been irrelevant before and I couldn't afford to let that happen again.
I think it's a powerful message. And so you had your early roles in marketing, in construction, et cetera. So explain that transition. Did you get any certifications, education? How did you evolve going forward, right?
It's interesting. For some crazy reason, I just happened to sign up for ChatGPT the very first day that it dropped, not even really knowing what it was. I sat on it for several days, maybe a week, and then I started hearing a lot of people talking about ChatGPT, and I thought, I think I signed up for that. Let me go see what it actually is. So I went back and I threw it some questions, which were horrible prompts, I now realize, and was getting terrible answers or really non-answers and was very frustrated. I'm a very curious person. I like to figure things out, and I couldn't figure this thing out. So after a couple of months, I decided to take an online course. I just looked around to see if there were any courses on it, and I stumbled upon a course by Coursera, which is still out there and still very viable. I took that course. It was supposed to be 6 weeks. I finished it in 4 days because I was so intrigued and I kind of saw the future in that first course, that first exercise. I still remember like it was yesterday. And it just blew my mind and opened it up. And I thought, this is something we've never seen before, and the world is going to be radically different. And again, having been irrelevant before, I thought, here's my opportunity to be relevant again and catch this thing on the front end and hopefully be at the forefront. And here I am.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because, a lot of companies now, they are doing layoffs. You hear massive layoffs, 10,000 plus, 12,000 plus, right? And I know one of the companies I think it was in India. Basically, it stated they tried some of the people that they did lay off were some maybe on the more experienced side who felt that couldn't transition into AI, right? And
Right.
so I think there's a mentality now that this is a young person's game. But like I say, is I was 50 2 years ago. This year I'll be 50 in 2026. I'll be 53. I made that transition, right? So I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks in a sense, right? I don't think I'm an old dog, but I'm still young at heart. But what's your message to others that they may not be in their 20s or 30s, right? And they're in a different stage of life and they're not ready to retire yet, or be put out to pasture in a sense. What are your
I
thoughts?
actually have very strong opinions about that. When I first started this AI agency, I just started an agency immediately because, again, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I saw the future and I wanted to get in early. I really thought that I would be teaching older people, 50 plus, how to use this technology. And I still do that occasionally. And I really thought, the young kids, the 35 and under, are really going to grab this thing and take off. That has not been my experience at all over the course of 3 years. The younger kids or the younger generation, for whatever reason, I think there's a number of reasons. I think because they were in school at the time and teachers were telling them, you better not use this or we're going to fail you. I think a lot of fear was instilled in them. So they really held off on using it. However, most of the people that I know personally that are killing it at using this technology are 50 plus. And again, I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I think one, they have critical thinking skills. A lot of the younger generation just doesn't have the critical skills that we had to grow up with, right? We have got a lot of life experience. We've seen technologies come and go. We haven't grown up with technology like the younger generations have, so we don't take it for granted as much. I think there's just a lot of reasons. Curiosity, especially Gen X and baby boomers. Childhood was not easy for us.
Yeah,
We
latchkey
had to
kids,
raise
right?
ourselves, and
Latchkey
right, we're cooking at 10 and we're babysitting at 12, and we're
babysitting our siblings and
doing all the things, being responsible and being curious about the world. We were able to go out and roam the neighborhoods and not have helicopter parents watching our every move. So it's just a different mindset and a different mentality. And I think that is probably the number one trait that we have to have, is not a vertical, but it's a mindset. And if we have the right mindset to approach AI, and that would be curiosity, forward thinking, willing to be a pioneer or an early adopter, those are the people that are going to make it.
yeah, I think as a Gen Xer, right? We had at least less resources. I remember, yeah, like you said, I was able to go ride my bike and do stuff outside. I definitely was not a helicopter parent, but when my daughter or my son said, "Hey, I want to go ride my bike and around the neighborhood," I'm like, heck no, because these days, people aren't. It's a different
Sure.
time. People are
Sure,
not.
it is a totally different time. And I think we were really privileged to grow up learning to be so independent and so willing to try things and get on a merry-go-round that was spinning 100 miles an hour that was going to fling us off and break our arms. So there is something about that mentality of older generations that were just sort of fearless about things like that. And so for me, that's quite exciting to see Gen X, baby boomers, and slightly younger really being able to grab a hold of this technology and start a whole new life with it.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is we're forced to figure things out. I made that transition during the internet age. But I think one thing that we do have advantage too is we actually have domain expertise. Because you can't, like you say, if you don't know how to do, I mean, even Gen I, you have to do prompt engineering, so critical thinking. You have to have writing skills, being able, to construct sentences, right? You
Correct.
have to, and then to create any agentic workflows or anything, you actually have to know the processes, right? If you've actually had
Right.
to build something, and back then we're doing like on paper or Visio or some other tools or whatever, but now you can't just go, like you said, there's no magic button, there's no easy button that this agentic workflow is going to build itself, at least today, right? Maybe a couple years down the road, 10 years
And
down the road.
on the other side of that experience, I really want to say this is with video, for example, the AI generated video is getting so good. You cannot tell it's not real. And many times, looking at one of those videos, the only way you know it's not real is it doesn't make sense. It's not common sense, right? That a lion is licking the face of an infant, right? But if you don't have those critical thinking skills, if you don't have life experience, if you know that just from living life that that's probably not realistic, how would you know? So I think judgment and wisdom and discernment play a huge part in not being deceived by AI, for example. And that is one of my bigger concerns about the younger generations who don't have the life experience and haven't been out in the world and seen some of the things that older people have is, will they have that sort of judgment and discernment and wisdom that they're going to need?
Yeah, and I definitely try to raise my kids to be independent and have critical thinking and be able to sort this out, because that's the only thing you can do as a parent. You can't be around them. You have to help them figure out a way to learn to think for themselves. So in terms of SourceKamp Labs, tell me, the impetus for that, how it came about.
Well, again, it was just my being curious and just having my mind blown and seeing all the things that these generative AI tools can do for me personally, for my business, for helping me be a critical thinker, for executing on all of my thousands of ideas I've had my whole life. I've just never been able to execute on very many of them because it was just me. That gets exhausting and tiring, and hearing your own voice and no one else's over and over just kind of locks you down. So having this partner finally that I had with generative AI, I could really start to explore some deeper ideas. I could go do research much faster. I could actually execute on some ideas that I had wanted to do. I thought, this is not, again, it's not an easy thing to learn. It's not difficult, but you really need a coach. You need somebody to give you the shortcuts so that you don't have to take the long way around and reinvent the wheel. But that's what inspired me to start the agency, is I knew that most people were not going to be as curious, severely dedicated to learning all of this new technology as I was. I know I'm kind of an outlier when it comes to things like that, to learning and being curious and digging into really hard subject matters. I've got the stamina for that, but most people don't. So I wanted to make sure that I was available to help those who didn't have the time or the bandwidth or the desire to dig in like I did.
Do you have a specific vision or mission for yourself going forward?
I have several, but I think it goes in layers. I think first, I'm a big proponent of education on generative AI because I know a lot of people are using it these days, which 2 years ago they absolutely were not. They're using it, but I see that they're using it more like a toy and not really like a tool. And there's a huge difference. I mean, it's great to start out as a toy. In fact, I recommend, if you've not used it before or you're still very new at it, go play. Right? Don't take things so seriously. Don't try to solve the biggest, most audacious challenge that you have in your business or trying to solve world peace. Those are great things to solve, but if you start there, you're going to be very disappointed. So I do encourage people to start small, the small project, play and have fun with it. Go build some art. Go do whatever, even if it's not significant. But everything you do with these tools, you're going to learn a new skill set. And eventually you'll be able to solve the bigger problems and tackle more meaty things. That's where I want to start, is just educating people, kind of giving them a cheat sheet or a shortcut to learn these tools that it took me 2.5 years to learn. I can shortcut that quite a bit now through education. And after the education, then they'll understand when to use AI, what to use it for, when it's appropriate, what sort of tasks they want to automate, things like that. And that's where I can step in after they've got the initial education and they've pinpointed and identified their specific challenges. Then I can take it the next step and help them actually execute on that.
So do you have any specific target segments or use cases?
I've got lots of use cases. I don't have a vertical that I really focus on. However, I do love manufacturing because I'm a problem solver, and manufacturing always has thousands of problems to solve. So I tend to lean toward manufacturing, but my clients are usually referred to me and they come from all over. So I've worked with everyone from international investors in restaurant chains to a beekeeper who wanted me to analyze some photos of his hive to see if his bees were sick, and kind of everything in between.
So did you use some computer vision for that, or what did you do for that?
He just took photos and sent them to me, and I wrote a GPT, a custom GPT that is basically an automation that you can build without using outside tools. I don't like to use outside tools like Make and Zapier because, one, I'm really not a technical person. I want to build things that I can understand and I can fix myself. But I build GPTs that can be pretty automated and do lots of different tasks. So that was one. The beekeeping one was one that I did. So he could send me a photo. I could build into the back end to go search weather. He could put in the date and the time that he took the photo, and I could have it go search the weather for that particular location and date and tell me if it was really dry that summer, or if there was flooding, or if there were mites within the hive, and how he needed to solve that. So my GPTs are pretty detailed, and they can solve a lot of problems just by typing in some really basic information.
Yeah, so let's, I think we can use that as a transition to understanding, your approach to AI, ML architecture and tech stack. I know you have a different set of customers and segments, and you try to keep it simple. But in terms of, people may not know whether if you have Chat GPT or some of these other tools, there's a regular chat that you can interface you can do, but there's a custom GPT section. I've created a custom GPT for myself in Chat GPT. I call it my Stonehouse Advisor CMO. And so I'll ask it questions and brainstorm and do different things. And you can, I've actually created a separate one I think I created another one for my creativity when I create images, another one for languages. But you can put when I was doing the language one, there's something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So I put in the IPA phonetic alphabet in there. I put in certain alphabets of foreign languages, if they were a little bit more esoteric in a sense, to help it augment, because sometimes the answers weren't correct. So in your GPT that you created, especially for the B thing, did you augment it with other information to make it?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
I actually did not. And this is, again, I'm not a technical person. I know what a RAG is. I know how to create all of that, but my clients do not. And I don't want my main job to be a tech developer and maintenance person.
Right.
I want to build things that are very simple, that are not going to break, that my client doesn't have to worry about and say, call me on the weekend at 10 o'clock at night saying, oh my gosh, this GPT isn't working. So I'm very cautious to build things that are very clean and very simple and won't break, or very unlikely to break. So I can get into the more technical aspects of building, but I like to keep it very simple.
No, that's very practical too, because a lot of people don't realize when you use some of these external tools, you have to have API connections to those, and there's cost to that for every API call and every, and it can stack up pretty fast.
It certainly can.
So, and the last thing you want to do is shell shock to your customers. Oh, here's a $1,000 bill after a month or two of certain things, right? And they would have never known that's going to happen. You've done stuff around the custom GPTs and other things. Have you gone beyond that to any of the other technologies, or any creative technologies or agents or anything like that?
I've played with agents a little bit. I mean, personally,
well, let's go to the creative side. What have you done anything you've done on the creative side?
Well, I've made some videos, I've done animations, I've played with Midjourney and some other apps like that. I've actually kept track of all the apps that I've done hands-on practice and experimentation with, and there's over 100. I've been exposed to and been able to experiment with a lot. I like the art, but personally, I like business, and so that's what I tend to focus on. I know how to build the art-based products, but I tend to stick with more formal business-centered apps. But I am using Lovable quite a bit. Lovable is an app that will let you, what they call vibe code. You don't have to know how to code. You just tell it what you want, and it will
prompt it.
You prompt it, and it will code for you, right? So for the last 2 years, I use TikTok quite a bit, for example, and not just to watch people dancing and lip syncing and things like that. I actually use it for business, and I get a lot of great information off of TikTok that I can share in my presentations or my speaking events or my workshops. And so I've been collecting just lots and lots of videos in folders within TikTok, but there's no way to extract them. And TikTok had that locked down pretty well. I really wanted to transcribe some of these videos and then be able to, copy that transcription and do something with it. Never been able to do that. But a couple of months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, Lovable changed their platform to make it a little easier. And I tried it once again, and it actually worked. So I created a program, and I just told it, I want an app that will allow me to copy a TikTok link, put it into this program, and you pull the transcription for me so I can copy and paste it into ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, another platform. And it took me a little bit to build it because, I mean, again, it's not just pushing a magic button, but probably after a couple of hours, I had a really good app that was super simple to use, and I use it daily now.
Is there an LLM that's kind of your favorite, or have you used a couple, or do you use
Oh,
them
I,
for certain
I
cases?
use a lot. I use a lot because they all have different personalities. And so it really depends on
Yeah.
what I'm trying to achieve. It's kind of like building something. Sometimes you need a hammer, and sometimes you need a saw or a screwdriver. And that's how I view the LLMs. So it really depends on the task at hand, which one I go to, but I use a lot of them.
I've used ChatGPT on the custom GPT side for the CMO stuff. I think is pretty good for that. I think Claude. I mean, Claude, Anthropic's Claude is good more on the coding. Like I think a lot of the vibe coding tools sit on top of Claude, and then Perplexity I've used, and one of my biggest use cases is the etymology of words or languages or stuff on religion. And lately, actually, Gemini. I wasn't a big fan of the Google products. I've tried Notebook LLM and Gemini.
Nobody was for a really long
But
time.
then I recently tried Gemini 3.0, and it was actually pretty good.
Yes.
Especially because I'm doing a podcast, so I'd ask it questions about how to improve certain things on the podcast. But when I would paste some things into Gemini 3.0, it would like not answer that question, it would answer the paste of the previous one. So I found some issues with it. So then what I did was I realized Perplexity had an option for Gemini 3.0 Pro and I didn't want to pay for Pro because I already had a Gemini Perplexity. It did a better job of the copy paste of like the screenshots and being able to continue with the conversation. That was at least in my case.
Sure.
So and there's times where I will use different ones for like, for my IT help desk. Like I would say, give me a step by step. I don't have time to go Google and research all this stuff. Give me step by step on how to do this thing in this app. Google, I was trying to do a Google ad campaign and it's not very straightforward and like which one's which. And I actually asked Gemini 3 to help me understand, okay, tell me the difference between performance max, demand gen, video gen, that has all these different options. And for my podcast, if I'm looking at these things, if I want to do this kind of, which one would be the best one? So just using it like you said, it's good to experiment to see. And then on the creativity side, I don't have, you can go get all these, Kling, Runway, Google VO. You can try all these things. So I have Night Cafe, and it's just a pretty cheap subscription. But in there, I can prompt it. And I've done it for my podcast. I'll actually test out in Flux or Kling or Runway or whatever what the best image will be. I'll try 2 or 3 and see which one does a better job of prompting and the result. And then I'll put it into the video generation. And sometimes Runway's better. And I was able to, one time Google VO was better, but I didn't have to go pay for a Google VO subscription. I didn't have to pay for these 5, 6. So sometimes I'll just play which one actually produces the best result and apply it,
And I think that's kind of the key with any generative AI is you really do need to experiment with several to one, see which one you're the most comfortable with, and 2, which one is going to produce the best results for the project at the moment. I really was disappointed in Google for the last 2.5 years, thinking if they don't do something soon, they're going to be out of business, believe it or not. And then a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they just bombarded us with tons of new updates that were very, very good. And I don't know if you've heard of Nano Banana. It was not what they had planned to name it, but I think it was an inside name and it somehow leaked out. And then everybody started calling it that. But I like that much better than Google 2 point whatever, something I can never remember. At least I can remember Nano Banana. But I have to say their image generation is quite remarkable. And especially for editing, it's remarkable.
I think they have such an install base of data and images, and they got YouTube, they got all these assets, right?
Correct.
That can help train these models.
Right.
And I'm seeing, some better results coming out of it, because especially on the Google related assets, right? Versus putting it into like a non, like putting a ChatGPT or Perplexity that doesn't have a Google based type aspect.
Sure.
So going into 2026, right? What are you looking for yourself or for your clients? What are you looking to evolve the business, right?
Right. So again, I think for me, it starts with education. And I've been approached by a number of entities asking me to come on board as a mentor or an educator, a content creator for them. So that's very exciting. I'm also starting to travel quite a bit, and I'm booking out some speaking events. I do a lot of public speaking as well as podcasts. And so I think, and all of that to me falls under the education umbrella, is getting in front of people and kind of giving them shortcuts to start. Again, getting them up to speed quickly, because I don't know too many people who are going to spend 4,000 plus hours like I have, sitting every day and every night for hours and hours and hours figuring all of this out. So now that I've got that knowledge, it just makes sense for me to share it and to break it down into simple terms and steps for people so they don't have to struggle. So that, I think, for the next year, I'll probably focus a lot on the education aspect. I'm still working with businesses, helping them as a consultant to decide again when and if and how they should be integrating generative AI into their processes. But that's really different for everyone. It's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all sort of solution. But I still enjoy that as well.
No, that's great. I think we met sometime early in 2025 at some sort of networking event or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's, but what about the AI Space podcast resonate with you that made you say, I want to be a guest on the show?
Well, first of all, meeting you, you're just a great guy to know and very knowledgeable and curious. I like curious people. And it is a little surprising how many people are not naturally curious. Some people, you have to sort of drag them kicking and screaming to be interested in something new, but you obviously were. So that was a huge appeal. Part of my wanting to educate, I like getting on podcasts like this where I can talk about the tools, the tricks, the shortcuts, what's coming, what to focus on, what not to focus on. That was what was appealing.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, before we continue, I want to invite everyone to follow Kellye Kamp. Definitely like, comment, subscribe to the AI Space podcast, because that helps us to grow the show to have more innovative guests like Kellye. So where's the best place for people to, hey, I want to connect with Kellye. Where's the best place for people to connect with you or follow you?
So on LinkedIn, I'm just LinkedIn at Kellye Kamp, and I have 2 unusual spellings of my name. So
I'll put the links up. So
that's the secret code. So if you can spell my first name correctly and my last name correctly, you might be able to get a hold of me. So LinkedIn is a great place to reach me. Info@sourcekamp.com is my email, and my website is www.sourcekamp.com. And again, you have to spell camp correctly. It's with a K, not with a C.
And Kelly's with the E at the end, right?
Kelly's with a Y-E at the end, yes.
Yay, right?
Remember.
Just remember Kellye, yay.
That's right. Me and Kanye.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Oh, yay. Anyways, and for those of you that are looking to get your business going in 2026, you're kind of stuck, you can reach out to Kellye, you can, reach out to me. There's a booking link in the bottom for a 15-minute meeting. I think it's also important what you said. There's, I don't think anyone these days really has the time to go do 4,000 hours of training. I mean, and things are coming so fast right now. There's new technologies, different things. I don't have time to go sit down for 2 or 3 hours if I'm running a business and go sit on training. But then, okay, after you do that 2 or 3 hours, you actually have to apply it. So now what I've done is my strategy, I think I said on a couple of podcasts now going to season 2, is snacking. So what I do is, if I have a specific business problem that needs to be solved, I'll go test out an AI technology on it. Whether it's like, for example, my thumbnail for one previous episode, I have an editing team. I didn't really like it, and it's like Thanksgiving holiday. We're running on deadlines, and there's no time to go back and forth. So I went to ChatGPT, got a prompt, went to Night Cafe, did the image, tested out 2 or 3 different apps, and then I got the image, and then I put it into the video creation, prompted it, and got a cool image because it was about no ghosting or whatever. And I sent it to the editors to put in. And because there wasn't enough time to do all the back and forth, and I already knew what I wanted, and it's kind of cool. It's like, when I'm not a natural artist, like to be able to draw something, what I found is through AI, I can like visualize and now bring to life things that are locked in my head, right? And it's unlocking some sort of creativity, right?
Right. And I love what you said too, that it was not an easy process to get the art that you wanted to create. It did take some steps and it took some time. And I think that's where a lot of people just shut down because, again, we talk about that magic button. They want to press the button and it just pops out. And that's really not how this technology works. However, I do stress in my education that if we will just learn to take a little bit more time up front and really think through what it is we're wanting to generate, spend some time, because you're not going to get the best result the first time out. It's a process. But if you can stick with it for 20 minutes or an hour, sometimes 2, depending on the project, and really work it on the front end of the project, then the back end is going to be so much easier later. You just build it once, and usually you're going to get what you want after that. So I think Google has trained us, unfortunately, to give a prompt in 3 to 7 words and get instant gratification. But what a lot of people are just now starting to realize is that we weren't really getting answers when we Googled. We got 3,000 links to articles that we then had to go read 1 or 2 or 3 articles and then discern what the answer might be based on those 3 articles that we don't know when they were written or who wrote them. So it really was sort of a crapshoot, throwing darts. And now, rather than just giving 2 or 3 words up front and sitting back and then having to do the work on the back end, doing the research and going and trying to find the answer, if you do that work up front and give it a lot of context about what you're wanting, then it's going to be much easier after that.
No, you're absolutely right. And the other thing with these things too, if you go into ChatGPT or any of these things, if you say, I'm creating an image prompt for, Night Cafe or Kling or Runway, it'll actually help you structure the prompt for those different apps. So you don't have to go spend 3 hours for, what is hyper realistic versus absurd res, and putting in all these intricacies in there, that it can help you figure it out. Then you can test it out. It's not always perfect. And then even when the image comes out, now there's cool things in these apps where you can actually, it would create the image, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're stuck with that image because the next time it's a new image. If you tell it to change something, it creates a completely new image. But now some of these new apps are coming out where you can actually enhance the image. And so you can say, okay, clean up the face or fix the arm or whatever it's going to be, or change the color to this, and it actually does it like a spot treatment. Mm-hmm. Last year, we weren't able to.
No way. No way. No, they're getting much, much better, and editing is much easier now, for sure.
Yeah. So, that takes us to vision, mindset, strategy. What do you think are the critical insights for long-term success?
Again, I think it's just being open-minded, which is, it's hard to change a mindset. It really is hard, especially the older we get. But I think that's what's absolutely required, is just to start shifting our mindset to going, you know what? It's not going to be perfect out the first time. I might have to sit and spend some time on this project to get exactly what I want. It's not going to be perfect the first time out. I'm going to have the patience and the grit and the confidence to keep moving forward with it. But again, it is just like an intern, a very smart intern, but they can't read your mind. So the more context you can give up front, the better your results are going to be right out of the gate. But sometimes it does take me 2 or 3 hours to build out the context of what I really want to build. But then it's so gratifying when that actually comes to fruition. So context.
Oh, that's great. So from a sales and marketing perspective, what insights can you share with those out there that are saying, hey, how'd you get your first clients, and then expand beyond that, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just put myself out there a lot. I'm on LinkedIn. I write articles. I try to be on podcasts. I do as many speaking events as I can. I just put myself out there because, again, it comes back to marketing, right? We have to market ourselves, or we're not selling much of anything. Also, I think that, sales are the hardest thing to do with generative AI the way people want them. I have a lot of clients that come to me and say, I need new business development. You've got to find me 100 new clients within the next 30 days. And I go, well, again,
if you did that, you wouldn't even be working with them. If
that's
anybody
right.
could do that,
we'd all be millionaires by now if it were
and
that
then
easy.
you wouldn't even work with these guys then, if anybody could do that.
Right. So again, nobody really wants to put in the work, but business is really about relationships, and pushing a magic button on a computer is not building that relationship. Now there are ways to go find people from LinkedIn. A lot of these platforms do have paywalls, just like they've always had. And so they're shutting down generative AI from scraping their sites. So again, that's where that upfront work still has to come in. A lot of times you still have to go find the client. But once you find them, now life gets a lot easier. You can go research their companies. You can find out their interest, what they're participating in, who they know. I mean, LinkedIn does a lot of that. But once you can pull and extract some of that initial data, then it gets really interesting.
So you get your first clients, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of it was very customized and brute force, right? Can maybe give some insights because people think, oh, I just can deliver the same thing. And well, yeah, if you're doing like a $49 training, online training, yeah, maybe it can be the same across the board. But maybe some insights for people that aren't aware of that going to 2026, how much effort and customization and brute force it takes, right?
It takes a lot. And I think we're now firmly in the age of everything is customized, right? I think our coffee is so customized. You don't just go in and order a cup of coffee. There's 20,000 options for ordering a cup of coffee these days. And nobody wants just black coffee. They want, like they want the mocha frappuccino with the hazelnut and the almond milk and the, 15 other things that they've got to add to it. So it's customized. But that's just where the world is now. And it's like that because we're able to ask for it and actually get it. So that's the thing I do love about my business is every project is custom right now. Every client is custom. They all have different needs, just like any business person. I know there are a lot of companies out there that are building with AI, trying to build that perfect one-stop shop, one-size-fits-all app. I think like SaaS platforms, I think if they're not changing with the times and getting more custom, they're going to be in real trouble because you don't have to settle for the same package that everybody's getting anymore. I mean, it's much like cable channels. Cable is still hanging around, but I know a lot of people that have given up their cable because they don't want to pay for 2,000 channels and they only watch 3. They want to buy the channels that they're using. Same thing with SaaS software. They don't want all the bells and whistles. They just need a CRM. So because it's so easily customizable now, why not? Why wouldn't you go that route? And so that's where I really work with businesses, is helping them discover what their real needs are, what software they're currently using, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And then if there's a way we can build out custom software for them that's simple, that's understandable to them, that fits their specific needs, then we can go down that road as well.
If you don't have the capital or the resources or the time, right, the best strategy is to find a target segment that it's not going to be 100%. But if you can get maybe 60 to 80% at some point, there's some sort of similarity, right? Unless
Sure.
unless you have the flexibility and capability to cater to different things, right?
Right.
I mean, for some people, they may not be able to handle both the normal coffee person with a creamer and then the one that has the frappuccino, mocha latte, iced, hazelnuts, soy milk, space alien version or whatever. But you have to decide, okay, can I do that, or do I need to focus just on the space alien version, right? And those are things that businesses will have to figure out, right? And it's not, like you said, it's not cookie cutter. And what works for you is not going to work for somebody else, and what works for somebody else is not going to work for you, right? And that's going back to that mindset of, okay, what are my core skills? What's the problem that I'm solving? And the tools that I'm bringing to the table, are they going to solve those tools in a meaningful way, right? And is the client willing to pay for it at the end of the day?
Right. Well, and sometimes it doesn't come down to cost. Again, if you can shift that mindset and be willing to learn something new, like my TikTok app, I didn't have to go pay for that. I didn't have to hire somebody to build that platform for me. And I didn't have to be technical to do it, but I just had to have the curiosity. I had to know exactly what I wanted out of the app, what I wanted it to do, how I wanted it to perform. It took a couple of hours back and forth of me saying, no, that's not really what I want. The interface was great, but behind the scenes, it took a little bit of work to get it to do what I wanted to do. But again, all I had to do was talk to it. I didn't have to program it. I didn't have to code it. I would just say, no, that's not. I want you to go grab TikTok videos, whether they have transcriptions or not, whether they have subtitles or not. I want you to still go transcribe it, because at first it was only doing one or the other. So again, I just stuck with it. But now I've got this great app that it took me 2 or 3 hours of my own time, my own grit, my own curiosity, my own work, elbow grease. But now I've got a great app, and I didn't have to have thousands of dollars or wait 6 months to get it. So I think that's the difference too for small to medium-sized businesses, which I like to focus on. I work with larger companies as well, but being an entrepreneur, I think I have a soft heart for the small to medium-sized businesses that maybe can't afford the $10,000 or $20,000 app or wait 6 months to get it. That's where I really like to focus, is helping those people and those businesses get what they need without spending a fortune.
Yeah, I think that's the best strategy too. Identify the low hanging fruit, and identify the area of impact where there could be a potential ROI, a quick ROI, versus waiting 6 months, or this turns into a big science fair project.
Right.
Where you actually are decreasing costs, improving quality, improving time to market. Are you increasing the impact? So what are the metrics? What are the levers that need to be that are important, right? And so as you go forward, right, we've talked about these different levels, but in terms of like operations and scaling, right, what's the next level do you see for whether it's yourself or a company? They got their first clients,
Mhm.
You're doing pretty well. So, okay, now I need to get to that next level. And there has to be some sort of efficiency, right? And so what?
I'm glad you said efficiency because that's exactly where my mind was going, is something that's never talked about in any conversation that I'm a part of, and there are a lot, is now that we're creating all this content, what do we do with it? Mainly, how do we organize it? How can we find it again? Because that's the key to scaling, is capturing really great content, whether that's instructions for a GPT or content for an article or a platform for a podcast, whatever it is. If we don't capture that and have it archived properly somewhere where we can reach it again, it's kind of worthless. I mean, I know for a fact I haven't counted in a long time, but I probably have well over 10,000 prompts in my Chat GPT account alone. And yes, there's a search bar, but I have to remember specific words that were part of that conversation a year and a half ago. The chances of me finding that conversation from a year and a half ago are slim to none, probably none, unless I've organized it in a different way. And up until just a few months ago, ChatGPT, for example, did not really give us a good way to organize our chats. So I think that might be one of the new careers that comes out of this AI platform and these tools, is finding people to help you organize all of your content. It's huge. I use Notion myself, which I've used another platform for 18 years, and I really did not want to switch over. But I called this other platform and I said, do you have any plans to integrate AI? And they said no. And I thought, if I wait another year or two, I'm going to be in real trouble here. So I made the choice to just switch over. It was very painful. I love Notion. It is not the most intuitive, but again, that could be another job. That's something that I would be willing to teach other people, is how to set up your Notion and use it properly.
So for those people that are not familiar with Notion, or maybe have heard the name, what exactly is Notion, and how are you using it?
So Notion to me is just basically a warehouse where I can store all of my data, but I can store it in so many different ways. I've created my CRM within Notion.
Customer relationship management and the way you interact with your customers.
Correct. I keep all of my documentation in there, and it's very well organized. I can also search for anything. The other reason, and I'm so glad I picked Notion, because now here's a little secret sauce for you. There are now things within ChatGPT. I think Gemini has them as well, but they're not behaving quite as well as ChatGPT's, but they're called connectors. And connectors are going to be the thing that changes another huge wave of society as we know it. So ChatGPT, for example, has partnered with Walmart and HubSpot and some other platforms through their connectors. So now as you're in ChatGPT, you can actually go out and access these other platforms without ever leaving ChatGPT. So let me clarify it a little bit. So because I use Notion for all of my data warehousing and all of my contracts, all of my speaking gigs and all of my outlines, whatever it is, contracts, I can be in ChatGPT and connect it to my Notion and say, do you remember that contract I did for this specific client? And it will come up and say, it'll connect to my Notion, go find it, pull it into ChatGPT and say, yes, here it is. What would you like to ask? And now I can start asking questions, or I can make changes, or I can whatever I want to do without ever leaving the platform, which is huge. I mean, I'm saving hours a day already just by using my connectors. So I've connected it to my Google Drive, to my Gmail account, to my Notion account, to my HubSpot, and there are several others. So you can find that through your settings, which if you're in ChatGPT and you go to your name and go to settings, once you open settings, you'll find apps and connectors in there, and it'll give you a list of apps that are already available, but they're adding more all the time.
Very cool. Glad people, you're sharing these insights for those, we're going to 2026 on the new things that are out there. People argue that, AI is a tool for democratization, but what do you see as the key challenges and opportunities in making AI accessible to founders and businesses from a variety of industries and experiences, backgrounds? How can we bridge this gap?
Well, it's definitely the great equalizer. I mean, I'm personally working on projects and sitting in rooms and meeting people that I have no business doing. I mean, 2 years ago, to be asked to do some of the projects that I've done would be inconceivable, because I didn't have that industry knowledge. I didn't have 10 years experience in finance and accounting or in foreign investments in chains of restaurants, for example. But yet here I'm able to create tools and help these businesses find their, work with their analytics much faster and get results that before took them over a year to get. I can now build something for them in a couple of days and they can access all of their data within minutes instead of a year. 2 years ago, that would have, maybe even a year ago, that would not have been a possibility at all. Again, because I've got the curiosity and the grit to go in and go, wow, I wonder if I could do that. And every day, it seems like I have somebody say, Kellye, I've got this challenge. Could you do X or could AI do X? And my answer is always, I don't know. I've never tried that specific goal before. I've never had that task, but let me try. And I'm willing to go in and just try. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, maybe 10 out of 10 times, I'm able to find a solution.
Oh yeah, if you have the good
That's
knowledge
pretty
base,
amazing.
yeah, if you can prompt, if you have a good critical thinking, curiosity, look at different angles, right? Yeah,
Yes,
those are things that can be done now with the tools at our fingertips, right?
they
There should
can.
be no reason, and then you can augment with people if you need to, right? Ethical AI. So how about balancing AI innovation with responsible development? What do you see going forward in that aspect?
Well, again, it's a tool. It's all about the human who makes it ethical or not. Right? It's the same as a gun or a brick or a knife. They can all be used for good or they can be used for malice, and it really depends on who's holding the tool.
I like what you said
And
about the brick because either you can use a brick to build or smash
or to
somebody, right?
kill.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really no different to me. It really is about the responsibility of the individual. And I know that might be controversial to a lot of people, but I don't know that you can really argue against it. The internet, for example, people say, oh, aren't you worried about all of these, open AI and all of these, people that are building these AIs and how they can be used for bad, for malice, and they can be harmful and hurtful. And I go, well, yes, but if you break down the internet itself, it is the most heinous tool that humanity has ever known if you choose to use it in that way.
Yeah, it is.
And yet we're not shutting down the internet. We're all using it daily.
And the unfortunate part is we're using that heinous tool to train our AI models.
Correct. Because the tool itself, the internet itself, is not heinous. It's a few bad apples who have used it for malice and for heinous things. But do we just quit using it altogether because there's a few bad apples? No. We also have to be very responsible. We have to pay attention. We have to teach our children how to use it responsibly. We have to learn how to use it responsibly. That's true of any technology. That's true of most things that come into our lives. I don't like the conversation where people try to make generative AI the bad guy and throw it under the bus and, oh, it's just evil and it's horrible and we should never ever touch it. We said the same thing about barcodes when they first came out. Barcodes that we see on the back of a soup can now or on anything that we
Social
purchase.
security number,
Right.
barcodes, QR codes.
Well, when barcodes first came out, I remember very distinctly. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, that's the mark of the beast, and it's the end of the world, and it's evil," and it's not. It's just a technology. Now, some people may choose to use it for that. I think the majority of us don't even think that way.
Yeah.
Hopefully, so again, it's just a tool, and it's up to us to decide how we're going to use it.
Yeah, I know. If it was the mark of the beast, if anyone reads Revelation, it would have to be on your wrist or your forehead, anyways. But
It
let's
was
not
a
get into
mark.
that.
Hmm.
That would be the mark. But I brought this up on other episodes too. People don't realize on the internet there's so much sex, violence, hate, all these things,
Trafficking,
trafficking, all these
child
things, and it
abuse.
can be used for force for good. But I'm just hoping these AI models aren't being trained on. It has to be trained on some aspects of that. If you look at our movies and our world culture and what does it contain, it has all these elements. Our literature. There's a couple years ago, I think it was Meta that hired some companies in Africa that outsourced to some, paying people $2 an hour to filter out all this content, and they developed psychological issues
Hmm.
because they've been watching all this violence and gore and
Sure.
heinous acts,
Right.
that go beyond the norm, right? Those are, and then in terms of, as you approach this, how do you put the guardrails in place, especially from a data management perspective,
Mm.
security, all that kind of stuff?
Well, most of these large language models do have guardrails built in. There are a couple that do not. that's the difference between, if you've heard open source and closed source, that's kind of the difference. The open source does not have the guardrails. You can pretty much ask it to do anything or create anything, and it will. And personally, I don't use those models. I used one a couple of years ago when it first hit the market. It was a great new tool, and it did graphics. It was open sourced, and I put in something very benign, very innocent, and it basically created porn because there were no guardrails, because it was open source. And so at that moment, for me personally, I decided I would not use that app again, and I would not use anything open sourced, because it is all about the algorithms. Just like TikTok, I have people say, oh, I see this, that, and the other heinous thing on TikTok. And I go, well, that's just an algorithm. You must be searching for that.
Or you've watched it and clicked on it
Or
multiple
you've
times.
watched it before and you stayed a little too long, and now it thinks you're interested in that. My algorithms are radically different from that, because I guard my eyes and my ears and my mind and my heart from things that I'm watching. So my algorithm gives that back to me. Again, that's probably my biggest step to take toward privacy and safety and security, is just being careful about what I'm looking at and what I'm listening to and what I'm building out. And then I don't really have those issues. Of course, back in the settings in ChatGPT and most of these large language models, there are toggle switches that you can turn off and on to share your data for training purposes, or turn it off. And I've turned all of mine off from day one.
And the other thing on, especially in these creative image generation, there's something called NSFW, not safe for work. So sometimes on some of these tools, you got to make sure it's NSFW toggle so it doesn't generate crazy stuff,
Correct.
But then also I found out when I'm trying to create certain images, and if you put in a certain innocuous word like an ethnicity or some religious thing, or it won't generate it because it doesn't pass the. And you're like, what? Then what it allows you to create versus what doesn't allow you to create sometimes can be frustrating too, right?
Sure.
So you got to figure, but then you can find ways to prompt around. You can ask your prompt to tell you how to prompt around that too.
You certainly can, but I would rather have the guardrails, and then if I really want to break the lines, then I can, but usually I just choose not to. But just like asking for medical information, there are definitely guardrails against that. If you ask it to create something that is illegal, that you shouldn't be creating, it will usually say, hey, sorry, I can't help you with that. We've got guardrails. So personally, I like the guardrails, but everybody has to choose for themselves.
No, I definitely do. It's just when, it's like the ones that shouldn't be a guardrail on it, but because people get oversensitive on a certain topic, and you can go. Right. So in terms of encouragement, any concluding thoughts, insights for those that are seeking to get in this space or struggling to build their business as we go from 2026?
Yes. I mean, again, just go play. Don't take it so seriously. Don't try to solve the biggest problem right off the bat, because you will absolutely be frustrated and you'll not think kindly of the tool if you try to start with something big. So just go play. Go create a poem. Go create a piece of art, write a bedtime story for your children or your grandchildren. I've taught my mom how to use all of this technology, and it's the best thing I ever did for both of us. She's 89 years old. She has not called me in 2.5 years to fix her computer or her television or her phone or her soundbar or research something. She even installed her own landline because she didn't want to wait for the phone company to come out and charge her $100, because I had taught her how to use it, because all she has to do is talk into it. She ordered her own equipment and installed her own landline. So, but it also has made her
some people are like, what is a landline?
Exactly right. If you're 89, you know what a landline is. But it's also, it's changed her in a way that's so significant that I could have never imagined. It's made her so much more confident and independent. She feels good when she doesn't have to call me to fix some tiny little thing in her house, right? Oh, this isn't working, or I need buttermilk and I don't have any buttermilk to cook with. How can I substitute it? She goes to her ChatGPT and she can ask it anything. She's tired of cooking meals after 80 years and she doesn't want to think anymore, so she has it do all of her recipes for her. She uses it for everything. But it's just so great to see her so enthusiastic about it and excited, because it is like a toy to her. but it's also a great tool. And so if my 89-year-old mother can learn to use it, anybody can use it.
Yeah, well, it's good to see that curiosity and independence runs in the family too, right?
Yes, it
Uh,
definitely does.
well, I'm sure I'll see you at some networking events in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in 2026.
I look forward to it.
I'm sure we could talk all day about the future of the AI space. I'm finally glad we can make this work out and get you on the show, especially in season 2. We're coming up on time. Once again, for our listeners, I'll put the links up, but where the best place for folks to connect with you?
It would be www.sourcekamp.com, SOURCEKAMP.com, or info@SourceKamp if you'd like to email me.
Awesome. And then you're also on LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn, again, 2 crazy spelled names, Kellye, Kellye, Kamp with a K, KAMP.
Yeah, just you can think of Kellye, like Kanye, right?
Kellye, like Kanye.
So you're the one who brought that up. Watch, you'll be there.
I do get that. I do have people call me Kellye. That's okay. I'll answer.
All right. Well, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple. Kellye, I've enjoyed this episode. I learned quite a bit. Looking forward to 2026 and connecting with you in the future. Thanks for sharing your insights. I'm your host, Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors. I hope you gained a wealth of game-changing, real-world insights to grow, transform, and scale to new levels and dimensions leveraging AI. See you all next time. Thanks so much.